Senator Antic, thanks very much for coming and for letting us in to ask some questions. Digital ID got passed last year, enacted pretty much this year, and it's being rolled out. Now, we've already seen the tax office come out and say that business owners now, if they want to do online business with the ATO, they have to have a digital ID to do that. We're hearing murmurs that more and more government agencies are going to go down this route, and it's probably going to be the case that what was said by the government to be voluntary is going to become pretty compulsory very quickly. What's your thoughts on this situation that's unfolding?
I think you've summed it up pretty well, George, and thanks for coming in. We had said at the time, those of us that were opposed to this and that spoke against it, and I have to say the party opposed it, so that was good. But I think there were some of us that took a particular interest in this because of what we've seen and what we're thinking we're going to see in the future, and that is, we're told it's voluntary at the moment, but in truth, that is never the case. I mean, we saw that during COVID. You know, COVID interventions were all voluntary, except if you wanted to keep your job and pay for your mortgage and feed your family, then it wasn't. So I think I'm expecting that will become the case here with digital ID as well, and that we're likely to see the entire system rolled out as a voluntary proposition to start off with, and then incrementally creep into our world such that you won't effectively be able to live in the modern world without one. And I'm really worried about that because just like we're seeing age verification now being touted as a thing in society, that really to me is a Trojan horse for identification, verification in the fullest. So, you can imagine a world where, no, you don't need a digital ID to go to, down to the store or whatever, but you will need one in order to go to a hospital because it's tied to your Medicare. And the creep is on. The surveillance state is becoming real, in my view, and digital ID is the key plank in the whole thing. It's a very, very scary time, I think, in Australian politics, and I'm more concerned that more in this building aren't, speaking about it more, because I think it's going to become a real issue.
Ralph, digital ID, the government passed this bill last year, it was signed into law earlier this year. The ink isn't even dry, and the government's going back on their word about this being voluntary. We're seeing already businesses now are required to actually, or going to be required to have digital ID to do business with the ATO, and we're hearing murmurs that other government departments are also going to require it for online business. What's your thoughts around this quick move from apparently voluntary to now it's going to be compulsory in some respects?
My thoughts are that this was always going to happen. I obviously don't trust the government as far as I can throw them, which is not very far at all. And I sensed it from the very beginning that this was always going to very quickly become almost compulsory. What they're going to do is they're going to make it so difficult for you to live your life without it that you'll have no choice but to voluntarily sign up. Because if you don't voluntarily sign up, like you mentioned, you can't access government services. You can't deal with the ATO. You can't deal with Centrelink, etc. So it's voluntary, but really is it if you can't function without it? So I think it's a bit of wordplay on behalf of the government here. They always knew that this was going to be the plan. It was a plan from day one, and they, in my opinion, hoodwinked the Australian people. I'm obviously against any form of centralisation of our IDs in one place, because when you give the government, potentially right now, it's a benevolent government. Okay, great. But what happens one day when they decide to flick the switch and tighten the screws, right? What happens when I'll give you an example, okay? I'll go off on a quick little tangent. Bear with me. Let's say one day they say, well, ladies and gents, citizens of Australia, because of our commitments to net zero, what's going to happen now is we must cut back on our carbon emissions. Okay, we must cut back. We have to save the world. We need to save the planet. Now they say, we have all your ID in a centralized location. We know, as an example, we know exactly what you're spending your money on. Okay, example. Let's say you go into one of the big supermarkets. Okay, let's say you spend X amount of dollars on red meat that month. Because you spent so much money on red meat, it's gone over your carbon allowance, your carbon quota. What happens is next month, potentially you can't spend as much money on red meat as you did last month because it's gone over your carbon quota. So this is, and I know this sounds a little bit dystopian, but this is the future that we're enabling when we sign up to things and we accept things like centralized government control over our identities, when we accept things like digital ID. So at the moment, it's going to be predominantly government that uses and enforces the digital ID. But what happens when private enterprise gets involved as well? Now, this sounds like a little bit of conspiracy theory, but it's not. It is the plan moving forward. So obviously, I'm against this stuff. I'm pushing back against it very, very strongly. And I can just see a future where we have a totalitarian control over our lives, and I don't agree with it.
Senator Canavan, you were one of the people who strongly opposed digital ID. The digital ID bill, Coalition voted against that. But now we're seeing the move. The government said at the time it was going to be voluntary. We're seeing government departments, starting with the ATO, that have decided that for businesses, it's now going to be compulsory if you want to do online activity with the ATO to have a digital ID. And the worry is that's going to creep in more and more when the voluntary sort of shifts to practically compulsory. Are you concerned about that? And, can you speak about your general concerns about digital ID across the board anyway?
Well, exactly right, George. I mean, these are exactly the concerns that myself and other senators put when this bill came forward. Indeed, the coalition as a whole opposed this bill in the form the government put forward because we were concerned it would lead to a situation where Australians would be pressured or effectively have to get digital ID just to do basic things as a citizen. So it's not nice to have our concerns come home to roost, but it shows that we need to maintain vigilance here. There were amendments that went through which notionally did say that a government department could not enforce or could not rely only on digital ID, that it had to offer a variety of different ways of proving identity, including non-digital ID forms. But I have seen those reports. I think we do need, there should be some kind of standing committee in this place, in the Senate, that is examining and overlooking the implementation of digital ID, because it was always clear that the government would set this up and potentially try and sneak things through. And there is a question here about whether the government is complying with the law that went through the Parliament. We can try and do our job here, although post the election result, with the numbers they are, it's hard for me to do that or the coalition to do that on our own. There is also, I think, there needs to be perhaps some serious investigation here with the legal action against the government, is possible here, because I don't think they're complying with what went through this place.
You couldn't believe a thing that they tell you. We've been headed down this path. We've known for years now where they're headed towards. They want to control people, their movement, what they do in their life. This is all about controlling people. And digital ID, MyGov, initially I signed up to it, then I got out of it. I thought, no, you're not going to have my information. I know I can't get information or connect with the government unless I was on MyGov. Now they're going to push this with businesses, so you have to go through their portals to deal with them. I just think it's so wrong. It's also, George, they're pushing us towards this digital currency as well. So they'll want you to be able to only deal in digital currency, get rid of cash. Again, it's controlling. So it's a shame where we're headed, this path that we're headed. And Australians, we've tried to warn them, and it's like the lights were off. They weren't listening to what was going on. And a lot of people thought, oh no, the governments would never do that to us. And where this is all headed is, and I've tried to explain to people lately, there's going to be 15-minute cities in England, and out here I've seen some write-ups about 30-minute cities in Sydney. So you're going to have the northern suburbs, the central and the southern. And what this means is that you will be controlled how far you can go. That means 30 minutes you will only be able to travel beyond where you live and where you work. So you're not going to have that freedom of movement. This is what the future generations are going to experience. They'll put it down to climate change, carbon emissions, all this. And the people that are going to be able to move about is those people who can actually pay for the carbon taxes. So this is all about a money grab. So you'll be able to move about. It's like in England now, for years now. If you've got a car that's over 10 years of age, you take that out on the road, you're paying £12.50 a day to have that car on the road. They're forcing you to go and buy a new car because they're putting down carbon emissions. Nothing wrong with the car, it's going quite all right, but no, they're forcing you to do it. India has now brought that in. If you've got a car over 10 years of age, you actually have to go and change your car. So they're forcing you to go out and buy the market, get more into debt, and it's all about sustainability, carbon emissions. It's a real shame.
Senator Antic, you've been quite outspoken against some of the e-safety commissioner's diktats and the things that she's doing, taking on Elon Musk, Billboard Chris over the post that he had. She's lost a number of different cases in judicial settings, which shows that she's basically made unlawful rulings from her government-appointed position. What future do you think there is for the e-safety commissioner? Well,
I mean, I think the interesting thing about this is that the creep of this office really started off as the Children's e-safety commissioner back 2016. I think it was probably when you were still in the building, and no doubt picked this issue a mile away like you always did in your time in the building. But it really began as a children's only office, and then seems to have morphed into an office which is dealing with all forms of the internet, including now we're hearing the prospects of a digital code for search engines. We're hearing prospects of Google and others being required, search engines requiring the need for identification, verification for using them. So my concern is the bracket creep on this, and I think this is what we often see with these bodies. It starts off with a certain mission, and then it becomes, before you know it, the mission creep sort of has blown out. And look, I am worried about free speech and some of the things we've seen. We saw recently the case of Billboard Chris, who I think it went before the Administrative Review Tribunal, and the tribunal found against the Commissioner's office, I think, in terms of some of the censorship rulings that were made there. So, look, as a broad principle, I'm really worried about the general direction of free speech online. I think we have entered into a world now where it's too easy to simply have posts pulled down. We've seen there was the other case, I think, of Celine Baumgarten, I think, who there were some issues of informal notices being sent. So it's in my view, the whole legislative framework needs to be rethought. I don't, for a minute, think that there's no need for online safety for children in particular. I mean, I think that's a pretty critical issue. But my question is, why are we not doing more about some of the real problems, like the sort of websites that kids are looking at, the kind of online pornography and those sorts of things, and rather than focusing on what's harming free speech.
Second question on the e-safety commissioner. Senator Cameron, we've seen the e-safety commissioner overstep the mark a couple of times. She's been basically wrapped over the knuckles at least on 2 occasions, probably 3, by judicial reviews or that sort of thing, basically saying that some of her decisions have been unlawful. What future do you think there is for the e-safety commissioner and the office of the e-safety commissioner?
Look, unfortunately, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. You're absolutely right that she's been embarrassed, really, no other word for it, embarrassed in the court. She hasn't just lost these cases, they've been lost hands down. She hasn't been implementing the law as passed by the Parliament. There can't really be much more of a more serious charge to a public official than going beyond the authority they've been given by this Parliament. It's a shame, though, that the enforcement of our laws seems to rely now on people with deep pockets like Elon Musk being able to take such court actions. Obviously, there are other people who help fund them in the case of Billboard Chris, but there are other people out there who have probably been victims of the e-safety commission that we've never heard of, and certainly do not have the funds to take this kind of legal action. Now, as I say, unfortunately, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better, because after the election, the Labor Party has double majority here effectively with the Greens in the Senate. They are all gung-ho on the e-safety commissioner, and as of course my own side haven't been completely pure on this, but there are some of us that will seek to try and fight back and highlight these issues through the avenues we have, like Senate estimates. Of course, also the other looming threat that might cause some restraint here is the situation of the US government. I've heard from some that Kevin Rudd himself has spoken to the e-safety commissioner and told herself to rein herself in, because if she goes on these frolics that she has been, there may be a response from the US to Australia. So look, we'll see what happens, but it's a pretty sad day, and the Australian people may be in the position of having to rely on another nation's government to protect their own democratic rights.
We've seen since the failure or the defeat, rather, of the Combating Misinformation and Disinformation Bill, more pushes for anti-free speech measures from the Albanese government. I mean, we touched on the e-Safety Commissioner already, but there's a push now for a digital duty of care, either bill or regulation that's going to come in, which will pretty much do the job of the Combating Misinformation and Disinformation Bill. Where do you see, given now that the Greens and Labor have control of both houses, where do you see free speech ending up by the end of this term?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. The last 2 weeks in particular, we've seen a whole lot of, I suppose, evidence in the media that this is going to be a real issue in the next Parliament. I've seen that, I think, with the references to these codes that the e-Safety Commissioner's Office are looking to write. We've also seen it with the addition of YouTube to this, this requirement for age verification. We were told when the laws were passed at the end of last year, the under 16 social media ban, which by the way I crossed the floor on and don't support in any measure. We were told that YouTube was exempt. We're now told, as a result of the Safety Commissioner's speech, I think, to the National Press Club, that there's a recommendation that it be added to the list of sites that under 16s can't use. So the playing field has changed a lot, and it's changing bureaucratically in many respects, and the Act allowed that through regulations for these sorts of regulatory instruments to be used to vary the thing. The other thing I'm really concerned about is this suggestion of a hate crimes database, which is a bit of a sleeper. Not many are talking about, you are, but not many others are talking about it at the moment. And this concept of your posts and the things you say online being collated into some form of non-criminal hate speech markers or flags for whatever reason we don't quite understand. But these are the sort of things that we would expect out of the 50s in Soviet Russia in many respects, I think, and I don't think we're expecting them here. But we do have a Greens-Labor coalition here. The shining light in all of this is I think there are an increasing number of people that are starting to understand that. I'm hopeful that some of the members of the Australian Greens will do some work in this space as well. They could kill this push in a blink of an eye through the Senate. And there are some people in there that have shown signs of really understanding these issues, like David Shoebridge, who, in some... He would probably hate me saying this, but I think we share a lot of common ground on some of these issues. So I think these are bigger than politics, because what affects Conservatives one day will affect the left in a different day. And I hope that we continue to see people in this building understand that. This is bigger than left and right in politics. This is about free speech.
Ralph, we're seeing this all-out war almost on free speech from the Albanese Labor government. I mean, ever since they failed with their Combating Misinformation and Disinformation Bill, we've had the e-Safety Commissioner ramp up, we've had the age verification that both major parties supported, we've got this prospect of a digital duty of care bill, all of them designed to clamp down on free speech. Where do you think we're headed?
Where are we headed? I think we're basically already there. We are, in my opinion, already living in a dystopian hellscape where if you say something that goes against the approved official narrative, be it the government narrative or what the controllers of the system decide is acceptable for you to speak about in a social setting, if you step outside of those boundaries, you could be up for a lot of trouble. I mean, we've seen people getting debanked overseas where their bank accounts are just cancelled because the system of the day just doesn't like their views and their thoughts. They get their ability to buy and trade taken away from them. We've seen media viciously go after people, as we saw during the COVID times, where if someone spoke outside of the approved narrative, they would essentially have their life destroyed and turned upside down. I think free speech overall is the bedrock, the very bedrock of a free and stable and prosperous and safe society. And when we decide that, you can talk about Y, but you can't talk about X, that is a very, very dangerous and very, very slippery slope. world, which is exactly why at the beginning of this year, I attempted to put a bill through which would alter the Constitution to guarantee every single Australian man, woman and child the right to freedom of speech. Unfortunately, that was in the 47th Parliament. That's since lapsed, but I will be reintroducing that bill in the 48th Parliament because I believe that without freedom of speech, we don't have Australia, we don't have our country anymore. And very, very quickly, we will start to resemble something like a North Korea, where if you say something that's unapproved, eventually one day you'll just be disappeared in the night. And that's not right. And it's obviously something that the United Australia Party is very proud to stand behind. And freedom of speech, without it, Australia's gone.
So the Albanese government is certainly on a bit of a crusade against free speech. I mean, you've got the Safety Commissioner doing her thing. We've got the failed misinformation bill, which is probably morphing into what they call a digital duty of care bill that they'll reintroduce now. And also we've got this plan to combat Islamophobia that's coming out soon. This is all, seems to me to be a tax on free speech. Where do you think we're headed?
Well, it is. They're shutting down freedom of thought process, and this started in the early 90s. And when I hit the political scene, it was like, wow, okay, she's saying these things. Because it was headed that way. Even Keating was trying to do it and shut down people's way of thinking. It was the thought police that were being put into place. My hitting the political scene basically to put a bit of a halt to that, and I woke a lot of Australians up to actually have your say. But over the last 3 decades, what's happening is they brainwash the kids in the educational system to come through, and they've put in place legislation that is shutting down people from having their say, as they did control the people during the COVID-19. That's what they did. They started to see how people would comply with it. 18C is another thing that they've put in place, and no government, whether it's been Turnbull or whether it's been Tony Abbott, Turnbull, Morrison, they haven't been prepared to actually get rid of 18C, which is controlling people's basic thoughts. So if anyone says something that offends you, harasses you, intimidation, and there's one other, insulting, so then you can take them for discrimination and your thought process. So freedom of speech, although none of us like to be, it can be looked at both ways. I have my say in things. It's up to the general public to judge me. They will actually ridicule me, or they'll support me in my viewpoints of what I say. But I have the right to say it, and I should have the right to say it, as long as I am not inciting violence. That's how I see it. I put up my own private members' bill last year, I think, or maybe the year before, on freedom of speech, written into the Constitution. They all voted against it. Even the coalition aren't interested in people having freedom of speech. Why, George? Why are they prepared to actually shut you down, that you can't have freedom of speech in this country, when men and women have died and fought for it and sacrificed their lives for, this is our democracy. This is what freedom is about. Freedom of speech is the pinnacle of what we should be fighting for, and yet they shut you down every inch of the way. And the same thing is what they've done with the, under 16s not, accessing the social media, and now they want to go after the YouTube, and that's this stupid e-commissioner that we have, incompetent. She wouldn't know what the hell she's talking about, and they have no basis for doing it. And my argument with this is parents should be disciplining the children, not governments. That's not government's job. Government's job is to adhere to the Constitution, the rule of law, and the economic stability of the country. They are not there to tell people how to run their lives and their businesses. But that's what we see constantly all the time. And this is another overreach by government. So it's starting with the children. All right, it's in the children's best interests. Remember that? That's what I said, children's best interests. As we have seen on the family law courts, in the children's best interests. It's about control or the agenda. They want to force people down this path. And now to attack YouTube. YouTube is used by many parents and adults as a way of educating themselves, of learning things. It's a very good tool for a lot of people. If they want to attack worried about the health of these kids, then get this bloody rubbish out of our schools about gender dysphoria and choosing what sex you want, whether you're a male or female, kitty litter trays. It's actually confusing our kids. They don't know who the hell they are anymore. And you're worried about, watching some media. And teach the kids resilience. Just because someone might have a go at you, which that many people over my years, 3 decades in politics, the amount of ridicule that I've had, for Christ's sake, dust yourself down and just say, right, who are you? I don't know you. You don't know me. And you don't feed me. You don't put food on my table. You don't pay my rent. Why the hell should I take any note of what you say? It's people who you respect, people that you love, your close family members, those people that will fight for you and care about you. Listen to them. Don't listen to some rat bag out there, because you might have a different opinion with you. And we've just backed away from that. Our kids can't stand up to anything. A lot of people in our society, that's why all this mental illness and all the rest of it, because they can't deal with it. They all turn into into this little ball. Oh my God, look what's happened, look what they've said to me. And kids, because they get a message on their Facebook page and they read what someone else says about them, and then they go to pieces and then they want to suicide and all this is going on. I'm sorry, I'm from the old school, George, really am. And that's what my generation was all about. Grow up, grow a backbone and stand up for yourself. It's about your inner self, who you are. And I tell people, put yourself up on a pedestal, mate. I said, you're the only one that can pull yourself down, no one else. And if you let them do it, then that's your problem.